Stand by. Oh, what's up, smarty people? KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability, get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Make your next thing a big one. This week's shows, my goodness, it has been a fantastic weekend as I am recording on Sunday. Friday, I was at the Rab in Convoy, Arkansas. Saturday night, last night, I was in Hot Springs at a house party, birthday party. Fantastic for some nice twin ladies. It was very cool. 80s music mostly. And then they kind of turned it up a little bit in the last hour. But yeah, a lot of fun. I'm there to entertain, and I was happy to be at the show. And then this morning, I was at the Little Rock Marathon, Little Rock, Arkansas. Oh man, this is the second time I've done it, and they do this usually it's once a year, but because of COVID I think they had to do it twice last year, so it was I was able to join them on their second round, and then so here it is just about 6 months later, and I was at the Little Rock Marathon providing the entertainment, providing the music, so they have something to listen to as they run on by. These folks were getting in shape and accomplishing goals. It was very nice. Little Rock Marathon. Hey, get involved. Get involved. It's a nice community event. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, March 6th, 2022. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Ukraine says over 11,000 Russian troops have been killed since the invasion began. Over 11,000 Russian troops have been killed in the 10 days since the invasion of Ukraine began, the Ukrainian military's general staff said on Sunday. On Wednesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky put the number of Russian fatalities at 6,000 and said 2,000 Ukrainian civilians had been killed. Neither report included Ukrainian military casualties. Russian Major General Igor Konashenkov said Wednesday that 498 Russian troops had been killed and 1,597 wounded. He also gave casualty numbers for the Ukrainian military, more than 2,870 killed and around 3,700 wounded and 572 captured. This is according to Reuters and The Week. Number 2, Harris to commemorate Bloody Sunday anniversary in Selma. Vice President Kamala Harris will visit Selma, Alabama on Sunday to commemorate the 57th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, the day law enforcement officers attacked civil rights marchers as they attempted to cross the city's Edmund Pettus Bridge. John Lewis, who helped organize the march and later became a long-serving Georgia congressman, suffered a fractured skull. Voting rights legislation bearing Lewis's name failed to pass the Senate in January after Senators Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia, and Kristen Sinema, Democrat, Arizona, refused to vote to circumvent the filibuster. This is according to ABC News and the New York Times. Number 3, Shell says it's appalled by Putin's invasion after buying 100,000 metric tons of Russian oil. Dutch oil giant Shell, which on Friday bought 100,000 metric tons of Russian crude at a discount, released a statement Saturday claiming to be appalled by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The deal was the first major purchase of Russian crude oil since the invasion began on February 24th. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba responded to news of the purchase by asking Shell if the Russian oil they purchased smelled like Ukrainian blood. In its statement, Shell said it, quote, didn't take this decision lightly, end quote, and that it made the deal in order to, quote, assure continued provision of essential products to people across Europe, end quote. This is according to CNBC and Reuters. Number 4, Utah's GOP governor will veto bill banning trans girls from women's school sports. Utah Governor Spencer Cox, Republican, said Sunday that he plans to veto a bill banning student athletes, quote, of the male sex from competing against another school on a team designated for female students, end quote. The bill determines sex according to, quote, an individual's genetics and anatomy at birth, end quote. 11 Republican-run states have recently enacted similar bans. Cox announced his veto after GOP lawmakers rejected his compromise proposal to set up a commission that would make decisions about transgender student athletes on an individual basis. Quote, I just want them to know that it's going to be okay, end quote. Cox said of the transgender youth the bill would impact. This is according to USA Today and Utah State Legislature. Number 5, Mariupol evacuation fails as second ceasefire agreement collapses. A second attempt to establish a temporary ceasefire to give civilians in the embattled Ukrainian city of Mariupol a chance to evacuate failed on Sunday as Russian troops continued shelling the city. The Mariupol City Council said earlier that day that Russian forces encircling the city had agreed to stop firing at 10 a.m. local time. The two sides came to a similar agreement on Saturday, but the, quote, humanitarian corridor, end quote, never materialized as Russian troops continued firing on the city. Quote, there are many dead bodies lying in the streets and no one can carry them, end quote. One Mariupol resident said Saturday. He also said the city's residents are running low on food and clean water. This is according to CNBC and the BBC. Number 6, 1,000-vehicle protest convoy plans to circle the D.C. Beltway twice per day. A convoy protesting COVID-19 restrictions and mandates plans to descend on Washington, D.C. on Sunday after experiencing delays the previous day. Around 1,000 vehicles had reportedly gathered in Hagerstown, Maryland, about an hour's drive from downtown Washington by Saturday night. Brian Brace, an organizer of the, quote, People's Convoy, end quote, said the convoy will not attempt to, quote, shut D.C. down, end quote, but will instead circle the Capitol Beltway twice on Sunday and repeat that pattern on every subsequent day. At least one trucker, however, plans to go all the way to Capitol Hill. Quote, that flag on the back of my truck will go down to the Constitution Avenue between the White House and the Washington Monument, end quote, he said. This is according to the Washington Post and the New York Times. Number 7, Trump jokingly suggests false flag operation against Russia. An event with RNC donors on Saturday, former President Donald Trump joked about conducting a false flag operation against Russia. The United States should, quote, put the Chinese flag on, quote, end quote, F-22 stealth fighter aircraft, quote, bomb the S-T, end quote, out of Russia. Quote, say China did it. We didn't do it. China did it, end quote. And then, quote, sit back and watch, end quote, as Russia and China, quote, start fighting, end quote, Trump said. The audience reportedly laughed, but there were those who took Trump seriously. Quote, imagine someone is stupid enough to believe China would have access to our F-22 planes. Now imagine that person being the former president of America and former commander-in-chief, end quote. Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat, Minnesota, wrote on Twitter. This is according to CBS News and Representative Ilhan Omar. Number 8, Ukrainians protest in Russian-occupied Kherson. Ukrainian protesters took to the streets in Russian-occupied city of Kherson on Saturday. An estimated 2,000 demonstrators began gathering in Kherson's Liberty Square Saturday morning, chanting and waving Ukrainian flags. One man even climbed up on top of a Russian armored personnel carrier. Russian troops reportedly fired warning shots to disperse the crowd, but no casualties were reported. A port city of around 280,000 people in southern Ukraine, Kherson became the first major city to fall to invading Russian forces on Wednesday. This is according to the New York Times and The Week. Number 9, Putin threatens Ukraine with loss of statehood. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Saturday that if Ukraine could lose its statehood if it continues to resist Russia's invasion, quote, the current leadership needs to understand that if they continue doing what they are doing, they risk the future of Ukrainian statehood, end quote. Putin said in Moscow on Saturday, quote, if that happens, end quote, he continued, quote, they will have to be blamed for that, end quote. The precise goal of Putin's invasion remains unclear, but few experts believe he wants to fully annex Ukraine. Taking part of a country, as he did with Crimea in 2014, is one thing. Wiping an entire nation off the map would be something else entirely. This is according to The Hill and The Week. Number 10, Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson raise money for Russian oligarchs in new SNL Cold Open. Oh, oligarchs. Fox News host Tucker Carlson, played by Alex Moffat, and Laura Ingraham, played by Kate McKinnon, hosted a, quote, Ukrainian invasion celebration spectacular, end quote, fundraising telethon in the latest Saturday Night Live Cold Open. The two began by apologizing for taking a pro-Russia stance in the weeks prior to the invasion of Ukraine. McKinnon, as Ingram, then told the audience that she and Moffat, as Carlson, planned to atone for their mistakes by, quote, raising money for the real victims of this invasion, the Russian oligarchs, end quote. The sketch also featured appearances by former President Donald Trump, James Austin Johnson, played by James Austin Johnson, Donald Trump Jr., played by Mikey Day, Kimberly Guilfoyle, played by Cecily Strong, and Steven Seagal, played by Bowen Yang. This is according to the Washington Post. That's 10 things you need to know today for Sunday, March 6, 2022. Thank you so much for listening. Just trying to make myself smarter. This has been What Makes You Smarter. I'm KeysDAN. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.